Never snitched the rule, a lot of y'all forgot to play by.
Grievances, speaking, any type of pushback. If you gave any type of resistance, then whether it was constantly going in your cell, whether it was restricting your phone privileges to your family or blocking people that's on your visiting list from not being able to come in, from constantly finding little bullshit to put you in a hole for, so that if they know you got visitation, because they know if they can't break you, the easiest thing to do, they feel as though that they can't break you because of your family structure, right, or your support system. So if they can separate you from your support system, then that's the easiest way that they feel they can break you. So they know you got visits coming. They'll cut your visit. We had made a decision like, okay, so tomorrow, Miss May gotta go. We gotta let Miss May go, right? So that was a decision, that was a conversation that was had where people was like, yo, how long can Miss May stay underneath of this before, it's just too much for her. So it was like, all right, so tomorrow, this is what we gonna do.
You have 1 minute left.
Oh, fuck. For me personally, I had 2 comrades standing outside my door, and I took a nap. So I was in the process of 2 comrades, 2 brothers standing outside my door because I was tired as a motherfucker. I was up, moving around, doing stuff the whole time, and I'm like, yo, I'm gonna take a 20-minute nap. And as I was in the middle of taking a nap, one of the brothers banged on my door like, bro, get up. And that's when the door blew off.
Damn.
And that's what I woke up to. The door blowing off and me having to find other comrades and get them to where I had to go. And then it's just fire and it's just chaos. And that's when shit got crazy.
In January 2000, a series of confrontations between several men escalated over the course of 2 nights. The conflict began at a party and spilled into the street, marked by threats, gunfire fired into the air, and growing hostility. The following evening, the dispute resumed near the intersection of 30th and Market Streets. There, Arthur Wells was shot in the back and abdomen and later died from his wounds. The state charged Ayers with non-capital murder in the first degree, conspiracy, and firearm offenses. Prosecutors argued that Ayers was the shooter. The defense argued that another man fired the fatal shots and that Ayers was present but not responsible. Evidence at trial supported both theories. Because of that, the jury was instructed that Ayers could be found guilty either as the principal shooter or as an accomplice under Delaware law. The jury convicted him on all counts. Ayers appealed, arguing that the accomplice instruction was improper, that the jury should have been required to unanimously decide whether he was the shooter or an accomplice, that a lesser charge should have been considered, and that evidentiary rulings were flawed. The Delaware Supreme Court rejected each claim, ruling that the trial court acted within the law and that the evidence supported the verdict. Ayers was sentenced to life in prison. By the time the calendar turned to 2017, Ayers was still incarcerated. The story of Jarreau Ayers cannot be separated from the most violent prison uprising in Delaware's modern history. To understand who he is and why his name continues to surface in court filings, appeals, and public debate, you have to return to February 1st, 2017, inside the walls of the James T. Vaughn Correctional Center in Smyrna. What began as a prison disturbance became an 18-hour siege that left a correctional officer dead, dozens traumatized, and the state locked into years of prosecutions that are still being argued today. Jarreau Ayers was already incarcerated at Vaughn when the uprising began. Like hundreds of other men housed inside the prison, he lived under conditions that inmates had long described as tense and volatile. Overcrowding, staffing shortages, and strained relationships between officers and inmates had created an atmosphere where conflict was always close to the surface. None of that excused what happened next, but it formed the environment in which it unfolded. On the morning of the uprising, inmates seized control of C Building, taking staff members hostage. Over the next several hours, the situation escalated beyond anything Delaware had seen before. Negotiations dragged on through the night. Tactical teams prepared outside the prison. Inside, chaos and fear ruled. When the standoff finally ended, Correctional Officer Stephen Floyd was dead. His death became the emotional and legal center of everything that followed. In the months after the riot, Delaware prosecutors moved aggressively. Dozens of inmates were charged with serious crimes, including murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, and riot-related offenses. The state's strategy was clear: hold participants accountable and send a message that the violence inside Vaughn would not go unanswered. Jarreau Ayers was among those charged. Prosecutors alleged that Ayers played a role in the events surrounding the riot and Officer Floyd's death. The state's case relied heavily on testimony from cooperating inmates, surveillance footage, and circumstantial evidence drawn from the chaos inside the building. From the beginning, Ayers maintained his innocence. His defense argued that the state was overreaching, sweeping up men who were present during the riot, but not responsible for murder. As Ayers' case moved through Delaware's courts, it became part of a much larger legal battle over how the riot prosecutions were being handled. Defense attorneys across multiple cases raised similar concerns. They questioned the reliability of inmate witnesses who received reduced sentences in exchange for testimony. They argued that fear, coercion, and retaliation inside the prison influenced statements, and they warned that the state was building cases on unstable ground. Despite those challenges, Ayers was convicted. The verdict placed him among the group of inmates held legally responsible for the deadly uprising. At sentencing, prosecutors emphasized the gravity of Officer Floyd's death and the need for punishment. Victim impact statements underscored the loss felt by Floyd's family and colleagues. The court imposed a severe sentence, effectively ensuring Ayers would spend decades in prison. But the story did not end with the verdict. Ayers pursued appeals and a post-conviction relief, arguing that his trial was fundamentally flawed. Court filings detailed claims of ineffective assistance of counsel, improper handling of evidence, and constitutional violations. Ayers' legal team asserted that the state's case depended on testimony that was unreliable and tainted by incentives. They argued that the jury never heard the full context of how testimony was obtained or what pressures existed inside the prison. In 2021, the Delaware Supreme Court reviewed aspects of the Vaughn riot prosecutions, including cases connected to Ayers. While some convictions were upheld, the appeals exposed deep disagreements about the fairness of the process. Legal opinions acknowledged the extraordinary nature of the riot, but stopped short of overturning verdicts wholesale. For defendants like Ayers, the door to relief narrowed but did not fully close. In April 2025, the Delaware Superior Court denied Ayers' motion for post-conviction relief, rejecting his claims that constitutional errors undermined his conviction. The court ruled that the arguments raised did not meet the legal standard required to overturn the verdict. In November 2025, the Delaware Supreme Court affirmed that decision, effectively exhausting Ayers' direct avenues for appeal. The ruling made clear that, under current law, his conviction would stand. Outside the courtroom, Ayers' case continued to attract attention from prison reform advocates and independent media. Articles and activist reporting portrayed him as a symbol of what they argue were rushed prosecutions fueled by political pressure in the aftermath of the riot. They described retaliation against inmates who challenged their convictions and harsh conditions imposed on those who continued to fight their cases. The state, for its part, consistently denied those claims, standing by the integrity of the prosecutions. Publicly, prosecutors and corrections officials have shown little sympathy for defendants like Ayers. In statements reported by Delaware media, officials emphasized the brutality of the riot and the death of Officer Floyd. They rejected arguments that remorse or systemic prison issues should mitigate responsibility. In one sentencing hearing related to the riot, prosecutors stated there was not an ounce of remorse among those convicted, reinforcing the state's position that harsh punishment was justified. For Ayers, life now exists almost entirely within the prison system he once tried to escape through legal arguments. His name appears in court opinions, legal databases, and advocacy articles, but rarely in mainstream headlines anymore. Like many defendants tied to the Vaughn uprising, his story has faded from public view, even as the consequences remain permanent.